Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back here to today's edition of Intuitive Angling, and really appreciate you guys coming by the channel to check today's video out. I think you guys are going to be happy to stop by today because we have got some really cool swim bait rigging techniques today, specifically for the wintertime months. We're going to be talking about the small swim baits today, like the 2 and 3 inchers. And I've got several different modifications that I make with these things and different ways that I rig them that really add up to a lot more fish in those cold water months between say November and February. So we're gonna get into that in today's video. Also guys, quick invitation. I'd just like to invite everybody to please hit that subscribe button here to Intuitive Angling. If you like the content of the channel, it's a good way to support it. We've been losing a ton of subscribers lately because there's a lot of sensitive types out there that get offended when I say something they don't agree with. So they let me know that they're unsubscribing to the channel. So if you guys want to help the channel out, it's a good way to do it. Just hit that subscribe button. So really appreciate that. Okay, 2 of the lures I fish a ton from now on, between like now, at the time of filming this video, it's the end of November. Between now and sort of like last part of February, first part of March, a little swim bait and a jerk bait are 2 of my primary lures. In fact, I probably fish a little swim bait and a jerk bait 95% of the time, during the winter months. These are really good baits to catch fish on. So I've got some modifications I want to show you here with my little swim baits that I think is going to help you guys out. Also guys, I'll put everything I'm talking about today, I'll link it in my description, my Tackle Warehouse link. If you guys want to get some of this stuff that I talk about, the components to build your swim baits, you can get them in that link there. So really appreciate that. Okay, first of all, let's start out with the head that I use. Guys, this is the Megabass okashira head, nano-coated, round bend hook. It's got a great keeper on it. It's got a light wire hook, but it's super stiff. It's got the original Megabass fish head design on it, which this is really important over a ball head because a lot of times guys use the ball head jigs for swim baits, but this little fish head, see how it's in line like that? And when you're reeling that swim bait through the water, it runs perfectly straight. A lot of times those ball heads will run off to the side, so this little fish head design of the okashira head is just the one you need to use. Again, I'll link that in the description. And there's 2 swim baits that I use. The first one I use is a little Keitech. This is a 2.4 inch Keitech, and the other one is a 3 inch Megabass Spark shad. These are the only 2 little swim baits I use for wintertime fishing. So I sort of want to show you how I like to rig them up. Now I rig them up differently depending upon what I'm doing. The first thing that I like to do, the first technique is with the Megabass Spark shad, and this is the Megabass okashira screw head. It's got a little spinner on it here. Again, I'll link this in the description here, guys. This is really unique. There's 2 different situations based upon water clarity, how I rig this up. Now, if I'm fishing a body of water that has less than 4 foot of clarity in the wintertime, I like this little screw head because in that 2.5 to 4 foot zone, a little bit of flash adds a lot to it. So what I do with this and the modification is I take the spark shad, guys, and I cut it off right behind the eyes here. And the reason I do it is I like just a little bit shorter bait than the 3 inch. It'll catch them the 3 inches, but a little bit shorter. And then I'll simply come in with the okashira head and make sure on the okashira head, guys, you don't want to push it. You don't want to push it too far up on there, because if you push it too far up on there, you're gonna get in the way of that spinner spinning. So make sure that you leave it down far enough where the spinner still spins freely like that. And that's the setup that I have with that. Now, this is for a suspended fish situation. So this particular deal would be perfect for like if you were out on a main lake or secondary point, or say you're back in the middle, if you guys fish like Lake Hartwell in South Carolina, you're back in one of those ditches and you're casting in those ditches and counting down this thing for suspended bass in the winter time. This is the little spinner on there really attracts them and pulls them up. Just throw it out there, count it down to the depth range you think the fish are at. How I determine that usually is I'll graph around the point with my 2D sonar, and I try to find, and I look for the depth the bait are at. I'm not really looking for fish, for bass, but I want to know how deep the shad are, and that gives me an idea how far I want to fish down for suspended. And sometimes I'll throw it and let it hit the bottom and just slowly reel it just off the bottom, maybe 6 inches. But guys, that is a really killer little deal, especially like I said, if you got water visibility closer to that 3 foot range, which a lot of lakes have. A lot of people don't fish a little swim bait if you've got 2.5 or 3 foot of visibility in the wintertime, but that little okashira head will definitely catch them and pull those fish out a little bit more stained water there. Most of the time I'm fishing it on 6-pound test, Seaguar invizx fluorocarbon line, and that Megabass whip snake spinning rod there. Okay, the other one is the 2.4-inch Keitech, and this is where I'm just using the straight okashira head with no spinner in it. And a pretty basic thing, but here's one of the rigging tips I want to show you here, guys, is when you're rigging this thing, you don't, you put it in like that, and you don't want to come through the center of the swim bait, because if you come through the dead center of the swim bait, you've got a lot of plastic in the way there. So when you put the point of your hook in the swim bait, try to stay just under the skin of the very top of it here. In other words, you want to try to keep that point of that hook just barely in the plastic. And what this does is it gives you more bite gap. I'll sort of show you when I get it rigged here. Now see the way I got it rigged there, the shank of the hook is riding high on the swim bait there. It's not down like in the middle of it there. So it gives me like probably close to 1/8, maybe even 1/4 of an inch more bite gap on my hook. You can see how big of a gap I got there, and that really helps you hooking it. And another thing, guys, when you're rigging this thing like this, it's very, very important to make sure that you come perfect. See how I got that perfectly straight? If you rig this thing, and even if you're off like a 32nd of an inch to one side, it's gonna cause that swim bait to run to the side a little bit. So the Megabass okashira head is gonna help you out with the streamline, but you want to really take your time and come dead nuts through the center of that swim bait. And the combination of going straight through the middle of it with the fish head, this thing's gonna run perfect as an arrow like that. Look at that little thing. That's a nice little looking tidbit there. Sometimes another little rigging tip I'll give you on there, a little tip is, sometimes I'll paint the head red on this thing. They don't come red from Megabass. They come sort of in fish head design, or just bait fish designs. That I have done pretty good by just taking red fingernail polish and painting it red. But anyway, guys, those are my two setups for wintertime. The okashira screw head, a little bit off colored water with the Megabass Spark shad, Keitech with the just the straight okashira head for the clear water situations. And one of my favorite things to do in a clear water situation in the wintertime, like I was talking about with the screw head, is I'll throw just the Keitech out there, and I'll get, again, main lake points, bluff banks, whatever, let it go to the bottom, and I'm trying to reel it and just keep it just off the bottom, just maybe about 6 inches or a foot off the bottom. And I catch a lot of fish doing that, especially in the dead of winter when it's really, really cold. Another thing, guys, it's really important to go to 6-pound tests. That 6-pound test, Seaguar invizx, is what I use. If you put 8-pound test on a little swim bait like this versus 6, you notice a huge difference. You lose your feel. You got more drag in the water, so the bait, it takes longer for it to get down. When you pull the bait, it doesn't react the same. There's a huge difference between using 6-pound test and 4. So go to 6-pound test. And sometimes if I'm fishing strictly for suspended bass, like in open water where there's no cover around, I'll go down to the 4-pound test in invizx. It just gives me a little bit better feel, more bites, whatever it is, but it works pretty good there. And finally, one other tip I'll give you on these little swim baits here is, even though it's got an exposed hook like this, you can still lose a lot of fish on this thing, so when you get your bite, you'll be reeling that swim bait along like that, and most of the time it just gets heavy. When you know you've got a bite, resist the urge to just set the hook like that. Just when you feel the bite, it gets heavy, just start reeling real fast. Because I don't know what it is, a lot of times if that fish hasn't held that bait and you set the hook hard on it, sometimes you'll force that fish's mouth open and the bait comes straight out of its mouth. But if you just reel fast, you're not going to force that fish's mouth open, and that hook's constantly pushing and burying farther in there. So don't resist the urge to set the hook, especially with the light line, because if you're using 4 to 6-pound test, reeling into them is even more important than setting the hook where you don't break your line. So anyway, guys, give it a try. I think it's going to help you guys catch a few. We'll talk later. See you.